Have you ever had a fitness goal, whether you wanted to lose a few pounds, build muscle, or just feel better in your own skin? Well, that's what we're talking about this week with my friend Jacqueline Whitmore, who's an international etiquette expert. Now, why did I invite on an international etiquette expert to talk about fitness? Because this is part of my Friends series. I am on Jacqueline's newsletter list, and she sent out an email where she posted a photo and was sharing about how she wanted to lose some weight and get really strong for her 60th birthday. And I found it really inspiring, and I invited her to come back on the show. Now, Jacqueline has been a guest on twice, where we did talk about etiquette with family and friends and in the workplace. Both of those conversations were fantastic. And I knew she would bring so much value to all of us, just helping us understand the mindset. Because I think sometimes when you have a goal, whether it is a fitness goal or a personal goal or a professional one, it's getting your mind right so that you can approach it and keep accountable to yourself and what you're trying to achieve. And that's not always easy to do. So in this conversation today, as part of my Friends series, last time we talked about empty nesting with my friend Susan Bear. And in today's conversation, it's really, the mindset and what Jacqueline specifically did in anticipation of her 60th birthday, which was the motivator for her to take on this goal. I love bringing on the world-class experts that I do, but sometimes I really find that listening to a conversation between two women about their own personal journey can provide as much inspiration. So I'm really excited to share the conversation with you today. And this is also not about achieving some cultural expectation of being thin or anything like that. This was really Jacqueline wanting to get fit and strong as she approached 60 and watching some of her friends with health issues and having navigated her own health scares earlier in her life, wanting to be proactive about taking care of herself. So this is a conversation on a lifestyle and mindset shift. All of the show notes are on your podcast player with an invitation to join my newsletter, where you'll get every new episode delivered straight to your inbox, along with other tips and inspiration for living your best midlife. And speaking of which, if you are going through a transition personally or professionally, you need some accountability, you don't know which direction you're going and are feeling stuck, I have a few slots open in my coaching practice, and I'm offering a free 20-minute call with me to see what your challenges are, to determine if we're a good fit to work together. The link to get on my calendar is also going to be on the show notes page right on your podcast player. So if you've been struggling and could use some support and accountability, I'd love to explore whether I can support you. Okay, my friends, on that note, let's get right into the show. Here we go. Jacqueline, it's so great to see you again. I'm so happy to be sitting with you.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be with you, Michelle.
Well, it's funny because you've been on as an expert, because you are an etiquette expert a couple times. My audience and I love you and all of the tips you give. And you sent out this newsletter, and it had two really interesting things. One was a chart about Gen Z and how they're interviewing, and how I think it was like 1 in 5 are bringing their parents to the interview, and they're not, a bunch of them like refuse to turn on their camera during a Zoom interview, which like I was blown away by. But also you had this gorgeous photo of you, and you shared a really beautiful story of how you were turning 60 and you lost 21 pounds and the mindset it took and what you did. And I was like, I think my audience would love to hear from a peer, from another woman who's, was having a birthday, and you'll have to see tell me if that was the motivation and what it was, but what you did, because we've had the doctors on the show, but I think sometimes we learn just as much from our friends about what to do and what works and what mindset we took. So I'll turn it over to you to where you want to pick up from that.
It was my birthday that inspired me to want to get healthy. It wasn't that I was not healthy, because I had been paying attention to my health and wellness for a very long time. And this year was different because I'll be the big 6-0. And there's something about turning another decade that really hits you in the face. And for me, it was like I would go to my closet and I would try on clothes and nothing would fit.
Yeah.
And shopping was not a joy anymore. And it didn't matter how much I worked out. And I was working out 4 to 5 times a week. I was trying to eat well, but I will be honest. When it comes to diet, I don't deny myself. I was eating and drinking as much as I wanted, whenever I wanted, especially during the last 3 years. And I don't know if that was stress or if that was boredom, but I got sick and tired of looking at myself and saying, I know this is not going to get any better. It's just going to get worse with every single year, because studies show that we gain weight, a certain amount of weight every year.
Yeah.
And I had to take matters into my own hands.
I'm so proud of you. And I think I was inspired by you, and I can relate. And, I've always had a petite frame, but I go in the closet and try to put stuff on, and it doesn't feel as good. And I'm like you, I eat healthy. I try to take care of myself, but I don't deny myself either. And I think there's probably a happy balance where, I don't think too much restriction, maybe long term. I don't know. I'll be curious what you've done. Or feeling badly. Like, I think you should enjoy food. I come from a culture that is really centered around food, and love is a part of the culture, and part of the way they show love is through food. And so, there's such a positive association, but also, you're right. We do lose muscle. I've had a doctor on that says, like every decade, we're losing muscle mass. So we have to be proactive, and we can't maybe get away with what we did when we were, maybe we can't get away with what we did in our 20s and 30s. It doesn't work anymore.
Right. And I look at some of my friends who are my age, and I hate to say this, but I would say to myself, my gosh, I'm starting to see them take heart medication and diabetes medication. And now they're on a weight loss drug because they're trying to shed all that weight. And I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And I've seen friends get hip replacements, and it just seems like that I don't want to go down that road. And if there is any way possible that I can stop it from happening before it happens, I'm going to do it. And I'm just that kind of person. If I put my mind to something, it's going to happen.
Absolutely. You definitely are that kind of person. And we become friends from talking. And if you're interested in finance, you dive into finance and learn what you can. And in this case, it was around health. And what's really interesting is, everything you're saying tracks with what the doctors have said. Dr. Casey Means came on. She wrote Good Energy about metabolic health. She lost her mom. I think her mom was 76 when she passed. She was on 5 different medications. And the doctors all told her mother, that she was doing well because she wasn't on double the amount of medications, which is what maybe the norm was for her age group. And so, is that really the model we should be living by? No, we want to be feeling vibrant and healthy. And so sadly, she had a type of cancer. I don't remember specifically, but was diagnosed, and 12 days later had passed. So she thought she was healthy. And then 12 days later, she lost her mother to cancer. And so, I think this model of sick care that we have in the States is not working for us. And we do need to take our health in our hands, which is why I have so many doctors on. And again, so excited to hear what you specifically did and how you approached it, because you are one of us. You are not a doctor. You do keep up to date on what you can. You were working out 4 to 5 times a week. And like you said, it still wasn't moving the needle in terms of fitting into your clothes. So tell us, what was your first step? Where did you begin?
My first step began a long, long time ago. So I'll be 60 this year, but my first step began in my 40s, but I'll back up even before then. So when I was 36 years old, I had a hysterectomy. I had the early stages of cancer. I was diagnosed with something called adenocarcinoma in situ. And so the doctor felt that it was best to go ahead and I had a hysterectomy. I was able to keep my ovaries, which was great because I was still producing hormones at the time. But whenever you go through a hysterectomy, you have no idea when you're going through menopause or perimenopause because you don't have your periods.
Right.
So I was lucky enough to have a friend who was a therapist. She has since passed. She was one of my best friends in the whole world. She was a sex therapist of all things. And she said to me in my 40s, she said, I think you should ask your gynecologist about getting on estrogen. And I think you should ask your gynecologist if you're going through menopause. And I kind of shunned that idea. But when I went to my doctor, I said to her, can you test me for menopause? And she said, well, are you having hot flashes? I said, no. Are you having night sweats? No. I mean, I didn't have any symptoms. And she says, okay, well, we'll just do a blood test. And she did. And a few days later, the nurse called me and said, yes, you're in full blown menopause. And I started having my first hot flash on that day. It was like she planted the seed in my mind. Well, long story short, my gynecologist put me on a plant-based estrogen gel.
Okay.
Which I started using, and it helped tremendously. And again, it was something that I just put on at night on my skin. And again, it was plant-based and for me, it was very safe and all of that. So I was on estrogel for, my gosh, in my 40s, my mid to late 40s, to early 50s. And then a friend of mine whom I met, she said, well, you need to get all of your hormones tested. And it's funny because I had never heard that you could get on testosterone and progesterone, and I just knew about estrogen. So in my mid 50s, I went to see a functional medicine practitioner, and the main reason was for weight loss. And I said, my hormones, let's get them checked because I'm gaining weight. And she did, and sure enough, I had little to no testosterone in my body, little to no progesterone in my body, but I had plenty of estrogen because I was taking my estrogen. And so anyway, she put me on, I take pellets, and I was only—
Pellets for the testosterone?
Testosterone and estrogen, and I take an oral medication at night for progesterone.
Okay.
Just a small dose.
Yeah.
I was only able to lose a maximum of 7 pounds with that. So, and then I eventually put it back on because I kept on eating. The pandemic hit and I kept on eating. So I went down and then I went back up. So then this year I decided I need to do something else. So a friend of mine, whom I ran into at a restaurant, he looked amazing. I said, my gosh, you look amazing. What in the world did you do to lose all that weight? Because he was rather big the last time I saw him.
Yeah.
And he said, well, I go to this doctor here in town and I did a gut cleanse. And I said, well, what's that? Well, of course, I went to the same doctor and I said, I want to do a gut cleanse. And she said, well, it's a 90-day program, and we cut out everything in your diet that's bad for you, and I give you supplements to help clean out your digestive system, and you take these supplements every day for 90 days. So we cut out gluten, dairy, alcohol, processed meats, refined sugars, legumes, grains, everything.
Grains and legumes too.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So it's different.
Fruits, not fruits.
I could have fruits.
Okay.
Yes. So basically, this was the paleo without saying it was the paleo, but that's what it is.
Okay.
And she said, "Are you ready for this 90-day journey?" And I looked her in the eye. I said, "I'm ready."
You were
hard.
ready, though. You were ready, though. Yeah.
I was ready. And the first 2 to 3 weeks, nothing happened. And I thought to myself, okay, this is strange. Nothing's happening. And then like 3.5 weeks, boom, the weight started coming off, like 2 pounds a week, 2 pounds a week. And I stayed on that. I don't know. I don't call it a diet because it is more of a lifestyle for me, but I was able to eat meat and fish, all the veggies I wanted, the fruit and nuts. That's what I lived on for 90 days.
Okay.
And no alcohol, which is really hard for me. And when I tell people what I did, they say, "Oh, I can't live without bread. No, I can't live without alcohol." There's always something that they can't live without. And I cut it all out, even though it just was, it was so difficult.
That requires, you had to be ready. I'm going to want to jump into mindset with you, but please continue.
Yes, I was ready. And I guess I did it because I had an end date. Yes. And when you know that there's a graduation date and eventually you can start bringing foods back into your system,
yes,
then there's a ray of hope.
Yes. Yeah, there is.
So after, I guess when I started seeing results, that's what kept driving me to keep on doing it. And I kept working out 4 to 5 times a week.
Okay.
And then I also go to another functional medicine doctor who puts me on a one of these body scans that tells me how much body fat I have.
Yeah.
And when I started with this particular doctor, I had my score for my vicious fat? Starts with a V.
Yeah, there's subcutaneous and there's now that you said it wrong, I can't say it right.
Yes. Anyway.
Now I want to know. It's fine. But yeah, there's subcutaneous fat, which is the kind that we all have or whatever.
Right.
And then there's the bad fat, which is the one that begins with V.
Yeah, you cannot see it. And
I'll look it up while you do it. Yeah.
When I started with her, that fat count around my organs, and I'm not a big person, I'm 5'5", but I couldn't see that fat around my organs. And my score was an 11. Okay. That's high. That's really high.
Visceral fat. It's
visceral fat.
Yes.
Now my fat count around my organs is 5. I went from 11 to 5. So that's the most important fat that really you should worry about. We only see the subcutaneous fat, and that's what we think is the most important, but it's really the visceral fat because 100%. It starts, it affects your organs. So anyway, after the 90 days, the doctor said, the practitioner said, you can start introducing foods, but you have to do it slowly and only introduce one food at a time. So in other words, I had not had white potatoes for 90 days. So I could have white potatoes, but I would have to wait 4 days to see if there was a reaction.
Okay.
And then I could try.
What were you looking for? What's the reaction? Like bloating?
Maybe your changes in skin.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you might get acne. I didn't get any reactions to anything except alcohol.
Oh no, which you like. I don't drink alcohol, but you like. Oh man.
And I'm like you. I wear a tracking device. I know you wear an Aura ring. I wear a Fitbit.
Yeah.
And I would wear that Fitbit to bed. And if I had an alcoholic beverage with dinner that night, my heart rate would shoot up. And I
Mm.
thought, well, maybe that's just a margarita. Maybe next time I'll try an old fashioned, or maybe next time I'll try red. I mean, I would try different things
Yeah.
at different times. And every single time my heart rate went up. And that was the only thing that caused inflammation and also caused a reaction with my heart. But other than that, I mean, if I want to eat white potatoes, I do so in moderation. If I want to have bread, I do so in moderation now. So it's not that you have to abandon all these foods, but for the first 90 days,
you do.
If you want results and you want fast results, and 90 days is fast in my book, you have to follow the protocols.
Okay. There's so much I want to unpack. So obviously, and there will be a disclaimer at the end, Jacqueline and I are not doctors. This is not medical advice, but it is so interesting to hear your journey with what happened. Testosterone is an interesting one. I'd like to get a doctor to come on and talk more about that. But it's interesting. You said you had yours tested. I literally right here have a blood test to see what mine is, because I was curious after all the interviews I've done, what is my testosterone level? Is it higher or lower? Because it impacts your ability to make muscle along with a host of other health things. And so anyone listening, make sure you do see like a qualified provider who's trained in menopause so that they can make sure you're on the right hormones. Like you got the progesterone added. And my understanding is that if you still have ovaries, you don't want unopposed estrogen. You need the progesterone so that the cervical lining doesn't thicken, or the uterine lining, I think, doesn't thicken. Again, not a doc. This is what I'm understanding from the guests I've had on. So it's important to like have that provider. And I love that you've had these friends that have come in and just been like, hey, what a gift to have those, that somebody even mentioned that maybe you're approaching menopause or you could be in menopause. It wasn't even on your radar. And it sounds like that friend was a little bit ahead of her time, because the information that's out now wasn't on our radar 5 years ago in the way that it is now. It's like all you hear when you like turn on Instagram or something. There's so many amazing docs educating us. I'm curious though on so did you do a bone density test too? Because I've recently done bone density at 53. They usually allow you to get it, not allow you, but insurance will pay for it if you're 65 or older. But my understanding is that's a little too late to be checking those things. So at 53, I went and got my bone density, and some scans do test for visceral fat. And I thought my doctors did. And she's like, oh, it's not calibrated yet, but the next time you come, it will be. And I was like, bummer, because I wanted to get that number, but you can get that. Tell us who did that? Which doctor did that for you?
It's same type of doctor. It's a functional medicine practitioner.
Yeah.
And I get on one of these machines, a body scan machine, and hold the handle. And for 60 seconds, it does a body scan, and it tells you how much each arm weighs, how much your trunk weighs, how much visceral fat you have, how much body. I mean, it's just whatever. It's just so much information. And I've been going to her for 4 years. She's the one who is the one who put me on hormone replacement therapy.
Okay.
And I want to say too, because I know your viewers, your listeners, there will be some who will say, absolutely not. Hormones are not for me, and that's fine. And they're not for everybody. And I would absolutely say check with your doctors first, just because it works for me doesn't mean the same recipe will work for somebody else. But 100%. I can tell you, I feel great. Yes. And it has helped me with the testosterone. I'll just speak to that. Has helped me build muscle mass.
Yes.
And I can see it because every time I go into my doctor's office, which is every 3 months for my pellets, I get on that body scan. So I see the progress happening. And the last time I was in there, she said, well, you're now losing weight and you're losing a little bit of muscle. because that's what happens when you start losing all the weight. I lost 23 pounds.
Wow. Did you have a specific number, or you just went the 90
10
days?
pounds. I thought to myself, I just want to lose 10 pounds. I mean, who doesn't want to lose 10 pounds? I had no idea I had so much weight on my body that I was carrying all of these years. And now I feel so much healthier without all of that excess weight. So 23 pounds just came off. And the testosterone helps me to build muscle. And so anyway, I lost all that weight, and the doctor, my practitioner, said to me, well, you've lost muscle too. And I said, well, how do I get that back? She said, you have to lift heavy.
Yes.
So now when I go to the gym, I'm consciously lifting heavier weights. Instead of picking up the little 10 pounders that I can lift with no problem, I go to the 15s or the 20s. I may not do as many reps, but I'm doing more weight, and I can start to see the difference.
And feel it. Yeah. Yeah. The bone density test, I think, is important. So did you get that, or does the thing she put you on, is that also showing your bone density and any risk of osteopenia or osteoporosis?
No, that's a separate test that you have to get. And I just had that done this year. Yeah. And there's different stages of osteoporosis, as you know. Osteoporosis is the big one, but then there's an in between, and then you don't have it. Yes. And I was so surprised that I don't, knock wood, don't have it. And the only thing I can think of is because I've been on estrogen since my 40s. And estrogen helps to make your bones stronger. So I'm really pleased with that.
Well, I shrunk. I'm an inch shorter, I found out, which apparently the first thing a woman said to me is, I was like, oh, I'll be curious, what it says. She's like, well, don't be surprised if you've shrunk, because most of the women do, or many do, and they're always a little surprised. So I'm an inch shorter than I was, which explains a lot, because I thought my daughter was just getting super tall, which she is taller than me, but part of it is that I'm an inch shorter. So that's part of it. But I did have a couple of spots where it noted osteopenia, and that was a huge, oh, this is not something you want to mess around with. And so I'm talking to my gynecologist, to the degree we're sharing, like friends, you're listening in. This is what I'm doing. This is what Jacqueline's doing. This is not medical advice in any way. And as Jacqueline said, what might work for me or what's working for her may not work for you. You may need something completely different. Or if you did have a hysterectomy and you had your ovaries out, I don't think they give you progesterone. And so the doc will handle that part of it. But yes, I asked her, I want to test my testosterone. And I wanted to know where I stood in terms of bone density. I think that's really important, and it's a motivator. So I think it's fantastic. Yours all came back normal. And the third is at 53, I still have a regular menstrual cycle, but I don't have hot flashes or any of that yet, or I don't know if I'll get them, but I'm definitely feeling more irritable. Like I don't feel myself when it comes around the time of my cycle. And I said to her, I'm starting to, and I'm waking up, which I usually sleep through the night. And so she prescribed for me estrogen gel, like you used. And she said to use it 1 week leading up to my period, and then stop. And she said, if you start feeling better and you want to take it all the time, then we'll add the progesterone, because you're not supposed to have the unopposed estrogen if you have your ovaries. This is my understanding. Again, not medical advice. I can't stress that enough. I could be saying this all wrong, but this is my understanding. And I'm excited to try that and see how I feel. So we'll see, but maybe that'll also help my bone density along with lifting heavy, I was going to ask you about that. What did you do differently in the gym? So what is your routine look like in the gym? Because you were already going 4 to 5 times a week. So what does that look like now?
I like to take classes. I do better in group situations. So there's this one class that I take 3 days a week, and it's a small group coaching class. There might be 5 of us and one trainer.
Nice.
And we do all kinds of things. From one day we might do that we build it. So we lift heavy. Another day we might do foundation. So we're learning to use weights properly. Another time it might be just getting your heart rate up. So it varies. And then today, for example, I went in and I used my app on my phone. I wear a Fitbit. So Fitbits and some of these other exercise apps have loads of exercises for people who want to build upper body, lower body, core, whatever. And you just put in the exercise that you want. And I go to this corner of the room and I put my weights and my mat down and I put my earbuds in and I work out to the app.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that. I love that. All right. So you did start incorporating lifting heavy. I'm going to have a doctor coming on to talk more about the importance of building bone health and to avoiding the osteoporosis. Because again, like I said, insurance and your doc may be mentioning it when you're 65, which in my opinion is too late. Because if I have osteopenia in 2 places at 53, what's that going to look like at 65 if I'm not being proactive? And maybe estrogen will help. Maybe it's testosterone. I don't know if it's going to help me build muscle. So who knows? I'm not on the testosterone and any other hormones yet. And I haven't started the estrogen, but maybe by the time, I'm sure by the time this interview airs, I will have started and maybe I'll do a follow on separate on that. But I think it's important to just, when I got certified as a holistic health coach, we learned about bio-individuality, which means what works for you may not work for someone else. So really getting in tune with your body, what feels right. I know when I eat something, if it's good for me or not. I can feel it. I know what makes me feel tired and, and sometimes I eat it even if I don't want to, but I mean, not if I don't want to, even knowing it will do that. Anything you didn't reintroduce because you just like the way it felt better? Like, do you have sugar now? Do you have dairy again? Do you have bread?
Oh, I went on vacation a couple weeks ago to Montana, and everything that we ate at the ranch was homemade. And of course, I couldn't pass up the homemade ice cream and the home baked breads and the pastas and all of that. But I have a rule. If it's not in my house, I won't eat it. So I don't bring chips home. I don't bring cakes and pies home. Instead, what I'll do is I'll give myself a little treat at the end of the evening. And instead of dairy, which by the way is very inflammatory, at least to me it is, and I've substituted it with coconut milk products. So there are a lot of different brands of ice creams out there that are made with coconut milk that are less caloric. They're small, but hey, I don't need much at the end of the evening. I try not to eat past 7 o'clock at night. And I try to eat my biggest meal during the day. And I mean, it's just these little tiny adjustments that we've heard all of this for years.
Totally.
But when you put it into practice, my big thing was education. Even though I thought I knew how to eat well, I was still eating things that were not good for me, that were still fattening. And it's amazing if you just cut out a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And I'll give you an example. In the mornings, I take a low dose thyroid pill, and that also has helped with my metabolism. And the functional medicine doctor put me on that. And so when you take a thyroid pill, you're not supposed to eat anything for the first half hour, but you can have coffee as long as it doesn't have creamer or anything in it. So during this 90-day cleanse, I learned to drink my coffee black.
Interesting. Okay. Yes.
And I know what some of your listeners are thinking, oh, I could never drink black coffee. I said the same thing. But even that little tiny change of not putting the fancy sugary creamers in the morning, that makes a difference. Or not putting um, full fat salad dressing on my salads. Instead, I use avocado oil and a white balsamic vinaigrette. These little tiny things add up after a while.
Yeah, that makes so much sense to me. And you also did you drink more water? You mentioned that in your newsletter that you drank a lot of water, or did you always do that?
I am more conscious about my water intake. So I bought one of these huge
Is it a
this
Stanley or is
yeah,
that
it's a
yeah.
Stanley,
Oh,
it's
it's
a
so
Yeti.
funny. Yeah.
But this is a 60 ounce, and I bought it specifically for my 90-day cleanse because I know if I drink 60 ounces, I'm at least more than halfway there.
Yes.
And then, of course, I bring a big bottle of water to the gym and I put something in it that makes it taste good. Um, and anyway, water, water, water. Sleep is also very important. I can't emphasize how important that is. So my goal is to get 8 hours, minimum 7 hours, because that drives everything else.
Yes.
So sleep is number one, and then nutrition is number two, exercise is number three for me.
Yes. And so you said you stopped eating at 7. I was wondering if you were doing any intermittent fasting. It wasn't really.
No, not really. In fact,
Yeah.
what I've listened to some of the experts on your show and other shows that say that doesn't always work for everyone. And in fact, before I go to the gym, I will make a protein shake, and it's quite large, so I won't drink all of it. I'll drink half of it, and I put some creatine in that shake. That also helps me build muscle. I've just started doing that, but it's a protein shake.
Yeah.
The other thing, this functional medicine practitioner said to me, you need at least 100 grams of protein every single day.
Yeah.
That's hard.
Yeah.
So I have my protein shake in the morning, and I have some lean protein with a salad at lunch. And
What
I
does that
usually
look like? Chicken, fish? What are you doing?
today I had a salad, and I put chicken on it. And tonight, right now, I'm boiling some chicken on the stove, and I'll make a chicken salad. And I don't use mayonnaise anymore. I use an avocado oil based mayo. So those are the kinds of things that I have started to substitute. They shave off a little bit here and a little bit there.
Yeah. Okay. Talk to us about biggest challenges, like, because it's a mindset thing. I feel like that's the biggest one, maybe. But what were your biggest challenges?
Well, you have to eat before you're hungry. And a lot of us wait until we feel those hunger pains. And then by then it's too late. Then you reach for the chips or you overeat something else. So you have to stay ahead of the hunger, and you have to plan out your meals ahead of time. So I'm always thinking a day in advance, or at least that morning, what am I going to eat the whole entire day? And if I need to go grocery shopping after the gym, I need to go pick something up. So I don't just wing it anymore. I think planning is really important. It's like going to the gym. Most of us don't love sweating and exercise. I do like exercise, but if I put my shoes out the night before and I have cute clothes to wear to the gym now, I finally made an investment in my workout wardrobe. I was wearing just anything old, I don't know, t-shirts to the gym. Now I've got really cute clothes, so it's more fun to work out.
Yes, I love that. I love this. And what about the people around you? Because I think a challenge possibly could be a partner who's not aligned with what you're doing, or like be like, hey, I just have a little bit of this cake with me, even though you're like, not because they're mean, but because they want to enjoy some cake with you. You know what I mean? Or whatever it is. Or how do you, did you have any of that or any thoughts on navigating social pressure around it?
Fortunately, my husband did the cleanse with me.
Oh, nice.
And I didn't ask him to do it. He didn't go to the doctor's office with me. I just came home with this plan, and he didn't do the supplements with me.
Yeah.
But I'm the person who buys the groceries. So if I cook it, he has to eat it. And let me tell you, he lost more weight than I did. He
Nice
lost
too.
30
Oh my God.
pounds. He lost like a toddler.
Oh my goodness. Oh my
And now
goodness.
he's completely sold on this whole new lifestyle. Now, will we eat mashed potatoes when we go out to dinner? Absolutely. But it's not something that we want to eat every single day. We don't want to eat ice cream, Haagen-Dazs ice cream every single day, because that's what's going to get you into trouble. He has started going back to the wine every now and again, which I haven't. And that's his journey, and I'm on my journey.
Yeah.
So that's all I can say about that.
I love that. And you use the word lifestyle. So basically the mindset shift was birthday was the motivator, but this is also the mindset shift of this is a new lifestyle. And you're, like you said, you're seeing friends in the way that they're aging and the health issues that they're having. And to be clear, this isn't about being skinny. This is about being healthy and strong and not developing osteoporosis and not being the statistic. Heart disease is the number one killer of women, and women worry about cancer. Another thing we learned from Dr. Suzanne Steinbaum, who came on twice on my show. She's a cardiologist. Heart disease is the number one killer of women. And once women enter menopause, within that 10 years after is when they start developing the precursors and the propensity to be be that stat. And so paying attention and understanding what Jacqueline mentioned about the visceral fat, like all of these things are contributing to how you're going to age and how healthily you're going to age.
Yes. And my dad passed away at 57 years old of congestive heart failure. Now, he was a heavy drinker and a very heavy smoker, and he was overweight. My mother also had heart issues and cardiovascular issues. So it's in my DNA. So if I can do whatever I can to be proactive, I'm going to definitely try. Will things happen along the way? I'm sure. I mean, there's no way of knowing, but if we can control what we can control, why not do it? And I will have to say too, that all the things that I have done and tried take time, and it can be expensive to go to some of these doctors and to get hormones and to get the vitamins that I take. I mean, you can open up a cabinet and there's just tons of vitamins that I take.
Yeah.
And some people would look at that and say, I can't afford that. I can't do that. But what you can do is you can get out and walk. If you can't do that, maybe you can exercise in your house. Maybe you can cut out those chips. I mean, I'm not preaching, because let me tell you, I love to eat. I'm like you in that we grew up celebrating with food.
Yeah.
I grew up in the South, and food was everything, love. And that's how we showed our love. And I love to cook. And that was something that I had to really do less of, which is
or differently.
Yes, differently. And it's so nice.
Yes. And also, like you said, I'm like you, if the cookies are in the house, for me, it's cookies, not salty stuff. I'm going to have the cookie. I'm going to think about that. At some point in the day, my body's going to be like, oh yeah, remember there was that cookie like you just ate. Why didn't you have it? A cookie. So having it or not having it in the house, but ice cream doesn't do that for me. So if my husband and daughter want to have ice cream, the freezer could be stocked with ice cream. I'm not tempted. So you have to know, yourself and what your temptations are as you're working, let's say, towards a 90-day plan. And then it's moderation. It's
Yes,
moderation and enjoying, because I do think food should be enjoyed because it is,
yes.
like I said, it's part of your upbringing. It's part of my upbringing. There's beauty in celebrating and enjoying a meal with somebody and, not being too particular about like, too worried, but also what are you doing every day versus those occasions?
Right, exactly. It's what you do every day. And you can certainly splurge and enjoy life and enjoy yourself and enjoy your company and all of that. And I did for a very long time. And that's what got me into my situation. I had too much fun. And then I decided, well, I need to really do something different because what I'm doing is not working. And it's not for everyone to go as extreme as I did, but I will tell you, I never ever denied myself of food. I would never felt hungry. I could have all the protein I wanted. I could have all the veggies, all the fruit, all the nuts, except when I say nuts, I couldn't have like a bowl of nuts.
Yeah.
I would have just maybe an ounce of them. And my treat after work is instead of reaching for potato chips and salsa and those kinds of things, I have pistachios and I'll have a little cup or glass of kombucha in my wine glass. And then I'll switch from kombucha to sparkling water. And then from sparkling water, I might have hot tea. I mean, so I'm still having to keep those cravings at bay. And I missed drinking out of my pretty glasses and my martini glasses and my wine glasses. So now I'm putting my regular drinks in them.
I love that.
Because it's just so much nicer.
I love that. That's a great idea. That's a great idea. And then somebody can feel like you're like sitting and having that, and it's the habit. Part of it is the habit of holding that kind of a glass as much as is what was in it. So I think that's fantastic. Ladies, not health advice, two friends talking about a health journey and a beautiful one. The photo of you in that newsletter you sent, I was like, just absolutely gorgeous. I mean, so stunning. You're a beautiful picture of healthy aging for your health. Literally, that's what you're doing. All these decisions you made wasn't about vanity. It was about health and feeling good in your skin and feeling good about yourself and taking control of what you can control. And just like you said, we can't control everything, but you mentioned in your 30s, you had a health situation, which you couldn't have predicted or whatever, but you managed it. And then you made better decisions about how to be more preventative. Not that I didn't say that exactly right. What I'm saying is you made decisions to be preventative moving forward, to do whatever you could to not be in another situation health-wise, right? Is that accurate?
Right. I think when you have a health scare, it really changes your perspective on a lot of things. And I don't want to wait till the next health scare to take action. And I know I'm seeing some of my friends go into this next decade with all kinds of ailments. And I don't want to wait until something happens if I can possibly help it. And so I do try to educate myself the best I can and read and listen to podcasts such as yours, because you have some phenomenal guests, and you just take what you want and you leave the rest.
100%.
Just make your own decisions. What my recipe is not your recipe.
That's right. And I had Dr. Gladys on, 102-year-old physician, and she said that when I asked her, what do you eat? And she said, I grew up when she was a little girl in India. She said, some of the foods I ate that I can tolerate aren't going to work for you. So just figure out what works for your body. And it's aligned with that message, and there she's 103 now. So she's doing something right. And part of it is listening to what works for your body. Anything else you want to add before we wrap up today, Jacqueline, that we didn't touch upon?
I would say movement is so important. Just getting out. They say motion is lotion.
Oh, I like that. That's beautiful. Yeah.
And you don't have to be an Olympic athlete. You can just do what feels good to you, whether it's stretching or yoga or walking or dancing or whatever. But it's so important to stay mobile so that so that you can enjoy life and enjoy your family and your kids and your grandkids. And so that's the only advice I would leave with your listeners.
Yeah. And mindset hack, anything, just like, how do you get your mind right? I mean, you mentioned some really good stuff about having like the workout clothes lined up to prevent any friction. Is that part of it, or just anything you want to touch upon just quickly on mindset? Because I think that's one of the biggest barriers.
That is the biggest barrier, and you have to want it. And just prior planning prevents poor performance. So what you can do to plan ahead. And for me, it was having a list of those approved foods that I could eat for 90 days. I knew what I could eat. I knew what I was not supposed to eat. I knew that I had to prepare the meals ahead of time and not bring certain foods home, because if it's free game, if it's in the house, I'll eat it.
That's right. That's right.
And reward yourself too. I mean, when I lost all that weight, I went online and I ordered some really nice workout wear. I bought myself an amazing pair of running shoes. Not that I run, because I don't, but I have some really nice running shoes that I can wear to the gym. And it makes me feel good. And and I will say it was expensive because I had to buy a whole new wardrobe.
Yes.
So that picture that you saw in my newsletter, I was wearing some of my brand new clothes.
Love that blazer, by the way. So pretty. Love that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So my best friend is a stylist, and
Perfect.
she and I went shopping for 2 days in Palm Beach. And boy, we burned up the credit card. So I've got all these nice clothes in my closet that I have to wear. And I'm like, I can't gain any weight because I won't be able to fit into these beautiful clothes.
I love it. I love it. I love your journey with it. I love your approach to it all. I commend you. I think you're an inspiration, and hopefully you're inspiring me. And I imagine, a woman of any age who's listening to this, but really thinking about how you're aging and your mobility and your strength and your well-being moving forward, I think is a huge motivator. That's one of the biggest takeaways. And I'm really glad to be connecting with you, because I always enjoy connecting with you. So thanks for coming back on to talk about something outside of etiquette. But if you want to learn more about Jacqueline's etiquette business, which I know, is booming right now because workforces need training and help in that area. Where should I direct people to learn more about you, Jacqueline?
They can go to etiquetteexpert.com.
Okay. And I'll put that in the show notes, and I'll even link some of the docs I mentioned and what they taught, because I think those were some really helpful episodes, and all of that is on your podcast player, right? On your phone or wherever you listen, or over at thegoodlifecoach.com. So great to be with you today, Jacqueline. And ladies, share this with a friend. I think this is how we motivate each other. I love the idea of just women supporting women. And you're a beautiful example of that.
Thank you, Michelle.
Hey friend, I have one request before we sign off today. If you've gained any value from any of the interviews that you've tuned into, would you take just 1 minute and leave a 5-star rating and review over on Apple Podcasts? It's actually how more women can find the show, and I want to continue growing a community of women who are loving themselves and living full on. So thank you for all of your support, and I look forward to being back with you next week. Bye for now.
This podcast is presented for entertainment and educational purposes only. Any information provided is not intended to be a substitute for medical, mental health, or other professional advice. Seek out your trusted healthcare provider or other qualified professional for all matters dealing with your health and well-being. Any opinions or information provided by a guest are their own and not those of Michelle Lamoureux or the company.